Have y'all ever heard people say, I don't know, it's just, the book of Revelation is just so hard for me to understand. You know, think with me for just a moment. Have you ever looked at what the name of the book is? The name of the book is Revelation. Not enigma, not mystery. It is a revelation, the revelation that was given to John about end times. And all you have to do is remember several things when you're reading the book of Revelation, and it'll help you understand it. You understand when you're reading the book of Revelation that it is written in past tense, present tense, and future tense. The Apostle John is looking back on events that have happened. He's talking about events that are happening currently during his day and events that are going to happen in the future. He's also telling that there are two stories that are going on. There's a story that's going on the earth, and there's a story that's going on in heaven. And so you can't get those mixed up, okay? If you'll keep straight that there's a heavenly story, there's an earthly story, and he's talking about things that have happened. And also, the Apostle John, there are filler chapters. It's not necessarily in chronological order. It's as a matter of fact, there are several places that he does this. He talks about in the book of Revelation the way that you would tell about your vacation. If somebody says, "Well, did y'all have a good vacation?" Well, you say, "Yeah, we had a great time. We ate at some really good restaurants. We were able to go out on the beach, and yeah, we had a real good time." So you would give an overview, and then you would go back and start filling in where you ate. What events that you did? Did if you went to the movie? If you rode the go-karts? If you rode roller coasters, you'd go back in and start filling in events. So here again, the Apostle John does this sometimes in the book of Revelation. He'll go through and tell you part of the story, and then the next chapter is giving you more detail about the previous chapter. It's not different events that are happening. He's just giving you more detail. So, like I said, the book of Revelation is a revelation. It's not supposed to be a mystery to us. Now, the rapture of the church, which is what we're talking about right this moment, the rapture of the church is primarily, the revelation of the rapture of the church is primarily given to the Apostle Paul. I want to remind you that when Jesus was ministering, when he was teaching in the four Gospels, he said himself, and we looked at this last week, he said himself he was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So when you're reading through the Gospels, his interaction is primarily with the Jews. It's not with the Gentiles, it's with the Jews. As a matter of fact, there is very little in the Gospels about the church. You have to get into the last chapter of the Gospels before it even starts referencing the church. The church was a mystery to the disciples. They didn't know about the church. They didn't know what the church was. They were all Jews. So they related everything that Jesus said accurately to their Jewish culture, to the Jewish religion, okay. So we find, a lot of the confusion comes with us on end times in Matthew chapter 24, and like I said, we went through this last week, that Jesus is answering their question. He said, the question to him was, "Lord, can you tell us about the end of this age and your return?" There is nothing in that about the church. So he starts telling them about the signs to look for the end of the age. They're not looking at the church. They're not talking about the church. They are talking about the age that they are familiar with. So they're not talking about, they don't understand about the 69th week of Daniel and it being cut off in the church age being inserted in there. Now they understand about Daniel. They understand about the 70 weeks of Daniel because they're familiar with Daniel chapter 9. So Jesus answers their question, and then we read later on down in there where there is a small reference to Jesus gathering together his elect. And it says that when he gathers his elect, he gathers them from the four winds of heaven. So Jesus' elect is in heaven when all of this stuff is going on. And what confuses people is earlier in chapter 24, it says that these days are cut short for the elect's sake. Well, we found in Isaiah that the elect, that Israel is referred to as God's elect. So that's the elect that's being referenced there. Then just a few verses down, it talks about Jesus is elect. So we found in that particular passage of Scripture, or that particular chapter, that they are distinct events. The Apostle Paul, however, is the one that gives us more insight and more detail on the rapture of the church. So that's why we primarily go to his writings. I believe, we know that right after his Damascus experience, he went away and was taught of the Lord for several years. We also find in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 that he was taken to the third heaven and shown wonderful revelations while up there. I believe one of those revelations could certainly have been about the rapture of the church, because he's the one that gives us the detail on this. So that's why we primarily use his particular teachings on this. Jesus was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Jesus taught them on Jewish custom, Jewish prophecy, Jewish tradition. All right.